The wind hums over an endless sea of silver mist. A breath between night and morning. In this quiet place, dreams drift like fallen stars upon dark waters. I am Morpheus, keeper of slumber, guardian of the unseen. Every night, I shape the tides of imagination, weaving hope into sleep. But tonight, something changes. The rhythm falters, the air grows still. A shadow ripples across the dreaming, silent and vast. The stars tremble, their light dimming one by one. And then, I see it. Rising slow beyond the horizon, the black sun. Its glow is cold, empty, as if it swallows the heart of all light. No warmth, no sound, only stillness, heavy as eternity. I reach out, but even thought feels slow beneath its gaze. Dreams scatter, colors fade. The sea turns to glass. Something ancient awakens, not in rage, but in silence. It is not evil, it is absence, the memory of forgetting itself. And so I begin my journey, to find what sleeps beneath the shadow, to remember why dreams were born before the world forgets to dream. This is where the story begins, where light meets its quiet mirror. Welcome, dreamer, to the realm beneath the black sun. The first eclipse began without warning. No sound, no sign, only a breath held too long. I felt it ripple through the dreaming, a tremor beneath the waves of sleep. Mortals began to dream of silence. Endless, colorless silence. Their visions lost shape. Their voices vanished into still air. Even the soft hum of imagination fell quiet like dust in winter light. I drifted across the sea of sleep, searching for what had gone missing. The stars above were pale, their reflections trembling on the water. Each star once sang a name, a memory, a heartbeat from a dreamer. Now they flickered faintly, as if forgetting themselves. The palace of dreams stood dim on the horizon, its towers fading to gray. The Oniroi, spirits of dream, moved like ghosts through the halls. They whispered to me, fragments, fears, echoes with no source. Something takes the light, they said, something unseen yet near. I looked to the sky and saw the black sun again, vast and patient. It hovered above the world like an unspoken thought, waiting to be understood. The stars around it bent, their edges blurring, their voices dim. It was not anger that filled the air. It was emptiness, still and endless. I summoned the dream spirits to the mirror lake, where truth ripples thin. Their reflections trembled beside mine, uncertain, afraid to breathe. "What steals our light?" one asked. I could not answer. The black sun was not like darkness. Darkness I knew. It comforted. This was different. It did not hide. It erased. Dreams began to unravel, threads turning to ash without fire. A child's wish dissolved mid-laughter. A lover's memory sank without trace. I reached into the water, trying to catch a reflection, but my hand passed through. The lake gave no answer, only silence deep as eternity. I thought of the mortals, how their sleep must tremble now. They would wake uneasy, not knowing why their hearts felt hollow. Perhaps they had forgotten the sound of their own wonder. Perhaps the world was too awake to remember how to dream. As I stood beneath the dimming stars, I felt the first flicker of doubt. Could even I, Morpheus, keeper of sleep, forget what dreaming means? The Oniroi gathered close, their eyes pale moons in the shadowed mist. "We must find the source," I said, "before even the memory of dreaming fades." The spirits bowed, their wings heavy with quiet fear. Far across the dream horizon, a pulse of dark light shimmered. It called to me, not in words, but in longing, ancient and pure. The first eclipse had begun, and I too would soon walk its path. The path to the archive of slumber wound through mists thick as breath. Every dream ever dreamed lived there, stored as threads of shimmering light. I followed the dim glow of memory, past forgotten songs and silent prayers. The air was cool, scented faintly of rain and old stories. The walls of the archive rose before me, carved from moonstone and whispers. Inside, the light flickered like a dying fire, pale and trembling. Rows upon rows of dream threads stretched into infinity, glimmering softly. But something was wrong. Many of them had turned black, dull and still. Dreams that once danced now lay silent, brittle like frost. I reached for one thread, a dream of a child chasing stars. It crumbled in my hand, dissolving into shadow and echo. The silence here was not peaceful. It was heavy, like time forgetting itself. Then I saw her, Somnia, the ancient weaver of dreams. Her hair shimmered like silver mist, her eyes deep as sleep. She worked at her loom with slow, tired grace, weaving threads that broke mid-air. When she saw me, she sighed, the sound soft as fading music. "Morpheus," she said, "you have come too late to save them all." Her voice carried sorrow, not fear. She had seen this before. "What is happening?" I asked. "Why do dreams fade before their time?" She looked toward the ceiling where light once danced freely. "The black sun," she whispered. "It is the forgotten dream." I frowned. Dreams cannot die. They change, they drift, they rest. Somnia nodded. And yet this one was abandoned, left to hunger in silence. She lifted a blackened thread, its light faint like a last heartbeat. When mortals stop believing, their dreams lose breath. This is their echo. Her words hung in the air, soft but heavy as truth. I touched the thread. It pulsed weakly, showing flashes, laughter, loss, longing, a dream of a world that once believed in wonder. Now that world slept without memory of why it dreamed at all. "The black sun," she said, "was born from that forgetting." I stepped closer to the loom, watching her hands tremble. Each thread she tried to weave turned dim before it reached the pattern. "It spreads," she said, "through minds, through stories, through silence." I could feel it now, the slow erasure, the stillness growing deeper. The archive groaned softly, its light shivering like breath in winter. "If this continues," Somnia warned, "even the gods of dream will fade." Her gaze met mine, steady and clear. "You must remember what they cannot." I stood in silence, the echo of her words like waves against my mind. Beyond the walls, the black sun pulsed again, distant, patient, watching. Its rhythm matched the beating of my heart, a strange and quiet harmony. I turned toward the door, my resolve hardening like glass in moonlight. "I will find it," I said. "I will remember what they've forgotten." Somnia bowed her head, her hands still weaving light into shadow. And as I left the archive, I heard her whisper, "Hurry, before the last dream fades." In the fading light of the dreaming, a mortal face began to appear again and again. A young man, Elias, wandering through dreams that were not his own. Each night, he stood beneath a sky without a sun, searching for something unseen. His eyes reflected the same emptiness that haunted the stars above. I watched him from the veil between dreams, curious and cautious. Mortals rarely cross so many dreamscapes uninvited. There was something in his heart, a thread that called to me, faint but true. He dreamed of silence, but inside it, there was longing, not despair. When I entered his dream, the world around him shimmered like glass. He stood in a vast field of ash-colored grass, shadows moving without sound. He turned as if sensing me, though mortals should not see a god of sleep. "Who are you?" he whispered. His voice echoed softly, lost in the haze. "I am the one who shapes your dreams," I said. "Tell me, why do you walk alone?" He frowned, his gaze distant, searching the gray horizon. "I don't know," he said. "Every night I wake here. The sun rises, but it gives no light." I looked up and saw it. The black sun, suspended in still air. Even here in a mortal's dream, its shadow stretched across the sky. Elias shivered, though there was no wind. "It watches," he said quietly. "It's been in every dream since the silence began." I reached toward the sun's reflection in his eyes, feeling its cold pulse. The black sun's power had crossed from my realm into the waking world. That had never happened before. Dreams were boundaries, not bridges. But now, the two worlds were beginning to blur. "Do you remember," I asked him, "what your first dream was?" Elias shook his head. "No one remembers their first dream," he said. "Maybe that's why it's here," I murmured. "The world has forgotten its beginnings." The ground trembled slightly, as if the dream itself resisted truth. Elias reached for my hand, but his form flickered like smoke. "Don't let it take me," he pleaded. "Every time I wake, I forget more." I steadied, him, weaving a thread of silver light through his fading outline. This thread will keep you tethered, I told him. Remember me when you sleep. His eyes softened. Will that stop the darkness? Perhaps, I said, or perhaps it will teach us what it wants. The dream began to unravel, slow, deliberate, inevitable. As he faded, his voice lingered like wind through glass. It's not just in dreams anymore, he said. It's in the light, too. When he was gone, I stood alone beneath the black sun's silent gaze. Its reflection rippled across the dream field, reaching toward me. I felt its pull, not cruel, but deep, as if asking to be understood. The veil between mortal and divine was thinning. Elias had seen too much, and now I had felt too much. The boundary between sleep and waking trembled like a held breath, and I knew then the black sun was no longer only a dream. The threshold of breath lies between heartbeats, a place where dreams are born. It is neither night nor morning, but the quiet pulse that binds them. I crossed that veil, following the echo of Elias's fading voice. Here, time does not move. It waits, folded within its own silence. The air shimmered with fragments of unfinished dreams, fragile as dew. Whispers of unborn thoughts brushed my hands, asking to be remembered. And there, at the edge of all sound, I found the timekeeper. He stood within a circle of glass clocks, each ticking in reverse. His eyes were like polished stone, deep and unreadable. Morpheus, he said without turning, you walk where even gods hesitate. I seek the truth, I answered. The black sun has entered mortal sleep. The timekeeper smiled faintly, his hands moving over invisible gears. Then the end and the beginning have touched once more. He lifted a clock, small and cracked, and held it to the lightless sky. Inside its glass heart, I saw my own reflection fading, moment by moment. What does it mean? I asked. Why do dreams dissolve before their time? The black sun, he said softly, is not death. It is forgetting. His words fell like dust upon water, vanishing, leaving ripples of thought. Every era forgets its dreamers, he continued, and so the dreamers forget to dream. I watched as one of his clocks melted into air, its sound swallowed by silence. Time itself was tiring, I realized, weary from carrying memory too long. What happens when forgetting reaches even you? I asked. He laughed, gently, like an echo fading through endless halls. Then even eternity will sleep, and no one will wake it again. He turned, his gaze piercing, yet calm. The black sun is balance, not ruin. It reminds creation of what it risks by clinging to itself too tightly. I stepped closer, feeling the weight of his words settle in my chest. Can it be undone? I asked. Can light be taught to remember? He placed the cracked clock in my hand. It beat faintly like a fragile heart. Nothing undone, he said, only understood. When mortals dream again with faith, the black sun will lose its hold. I looked into the clock. Within it, Elias's face shimmered for an instant. He was painting beneath a dark sky, his brush leaving trails of light. I realized then that even in silence, creation still whispers. The timekeeper nodded, as if hearing my thought. Go back to the dreaming, he said. Listen to the rhythm beneath stillness. Before you can save dreams, you must dream them again. The glass clocks around us began to dissolve, turning into motes of starlight. I stepped through the falling light, feeling time bend gently around me. Behind me, the timekeeper's voice drifted like a sigh across eternity. Remember, Morpheus, the black sun is not your enemy. It is your reflection. And as I passed beyond the threshold, I felt the truth within that silence. Even forgetting has its purpose, to make remembering possible. Beyond the threshold, the dreaming stretched wide and hollow. Where once there were mountains of color, now stood plains of ash and silence. I drifted across them, feeling the emptiness pulse beneath my feet. The dreams that once thrived here had vanished, leaving only echoes behind. They were not destroyed, only forgotten, hollow shells without a dreamer. Shapes wandered the horizon, fragile as smoke, memories without purpose. They moved slowly, repeating gestures of longing they no longer understood. Each one was a dream left behind, searching for the soul that had birthed it. I knelt beside one, a small, translucent figure humming a tune with no melody. Its eyes were blank mirrors, reflecting the dim sky of the black sun. I whispered to it, "Who do you remember?" But it made no sound. It reached for my hand, but its fingers passed through like mist. The silence here was not cruel, but it ached, deep, patient, endless. I could feel how far mortals had drifted from their own wonder. They no longer dreamed of joy, only of fear, of need, of nothing at all. Without belief, even the smallest dream turns to dust. I closed my eyes and listened, searching for any pulse of light still alive, and faintly, I heard it, a heartbeat hidden within the stillness. It was Elias. The thread I gave him still shimmered faintly in the dark. Through him, some dreams still remembered to exist. I followed that faint pulse through the shifting fog of lost visions. Each step stirred the air, and whispers rose like forgotten lullabies. They asked not to be remembered, but simply to rest. Yet I knew rest without remembrance becomes erasure. At the horizon, I found a great rift, wide as eternity. From it poured a soft radiance, dim but steady, the last breath of imagination. I reached out, touching the light, and it whispered my own name back to me. The dreaming itself was calling, wounded but alive. I saw within the rift scenes of the waking world, cities without stars, people sleeping beneath screens that never darkened, eyes open but unseeing. They had replaced wonder with noise, and silence had become the new god. This was the wound. This was where the black sun fed, not from hatred, but from forgetting beauty. I knew what I had to do. I would reach Elias again. He carried within him the spark that might awaken others. If one dreamer could remember the warmth of wonder, others might follow. The lost shapes gathered behind me, drawn to the light within my path. They did not speak, but their silence felt like hope beginning to stir. I turned to them and said, "Follow the heartbeat. Follow the dream that remembers." The plains began to shimmer, the ash lifting into faint silver dust. The first color in ages bloomed faintly, a thread of blue, fragile but true. And as I walked toward the rift, I whispered into the emptiness, "Dreams do not die. They wait to be believed again." At the edge of the rift, the air shimmered with ancient sound. A melody, faint as a sigh, drifted through the stillness. I followed it, drawn like a tide toward its quiet grace. There, half buried in starlight, lay the harp of Nyx, mother of night. Its strings were woven from moonlight and memory, untouched for eons. I placed my hand upon it, and it hummed beneath my fingers, alive. Each note that rose from it carried the weight of forgotten dreams. The sound spread across the plains, gentle but unyielding. Shadows paused, lifting their heads as if remembering what they once were. Color seeped back into the air, pale hues of dawn returning in waves. The harp's voice was sorrow and hope entwined, a lullaby for lost souls. As I played, the black sun flickered, trembling as though uncertain. The melody reached its edge, echoing through the hollow of silence. Then came a voice, deep, hollow, neither kind nor cruel. "I am what remains when you cease to dream." The sound filled the sky, vast as the void between stars. It was not a threat, it was truth, simple, cold, inevitable. I stopped playing, the strings vibrating with the echo of that voice. "Why do you exist?" I asked. "What are you truly?" The light of the black sun pulsed once, steady and slow. "I am the shadow of memory," it said, "the echo of your forgetting." Its voice moved through the air like wind through glass, smooth, eternal. "You created me," it continued. "When you stopped believing in your own light, I felt the truth settle heavy in my chest. The black sun was no invader. It was a reflection, born of neglect. As mortals lost faith in dreams, the dream itself had darkened. "What do you want from us?" I whispered. "Nothing," it replied. "I am what you leave behind." The harp fell silent. The plains dimmed once more. But I understood now. Silence was not the end. It was the beginning of song. Without quiet, no music could ever be born. I began to play again, slower this time, each note deliberate. The melody shifted, carrying both sorrow and awakening. For every sound, a memory returned, a child's laughter, a mother's lullaby, a city's hum, a poet's whisper, a single heartbeat in the dark. The black sun did not fade, but it softened, its edges less harsh. Even the shadow must listen when the dream sings again. The lost shapes gathered, glowing faintly with color reborn. Their silence turned into harmony, blending with the harp's voice. For the first time in eons, the dreaming breathed. I felt the rhythm of life beneath me, fragile but real. And above it all, the black sun whispered again, softer now. Remember me not as fear, but as space for light to grow. I closed my eyes and played until the stars began to stir once more. Each note rose like dawn through darkness, and the dream remembered itself. In the waking world, Elias stirred from uneasy sleep. The echo of the harp still lingered in his heartbeat, soft and strange. He opened his eyes to a gray dawn. Light filtered through the weight of clouds. For a moment, he could still see the black sun burned behind his eyelids. Its cold presence pulsed faintly like an afterimage of silence. He rose, unsteady, and found his sketchbook waiting by the window, pages filled with fragments of dreams, faces, skies, shadows without form. But today, something new pressed at his mind, the urge to create light. He began to paint, slow strokes of gold against the dark horizon. Each color he laid down seemed to pulse with its own rhythm. As he painted, he remembered pieces of what he'd seen. The god in the mist, the harp, the words, "Remember me not as fear." He didn't know their meaning, only that they felt like truth. Outside, the world moved quietly, unaware that something had changed. People passed, tired and distant, eyes dim with routine. But when they saw his paintings in the gallery window, they stopped. Each canvas held both shadow and brilliance, suns half swallowed by night. They could not explain it, but they felt something stir within them, a memory of wonder, a pull toward something they had long forgotten. Soon, whispers spread about the dream painter who captured silence itself. Elias's art traveled across screens and streets, touching countless minds. And in the dreaming, I watched the ripples unfold like light through deep water. Each heart that remembered beauty reignited a star in the sleeping sky. The black sun flickered, its vast glow now threaded with faint silver lines. It was not vanishing. It was transforming, finding balance again. I drifted closer to the edge of the mortal veil, where dreams met waking. Through Elias, imagination had begun to breathe once more. He dreamed that night, and I came to him, unseen but near. He stood on a cliff of light, the horizon endless, the sun whole. "Morpheus," he whispered. "Is it over?" I shook my head. "No, dreamer. It has only begun to heal." He looked at his hands, still stained with the colors of morning. "I just wanted to remember what the world could be," he said softly. "And you did," I replied. "You reminded it that silence is not emptiness." He smiled, a quiet peace settling into his voice. "Then I will keep painting," he said, "even if no one believes." "That," I told him, "is how gods are born." The dream around us brightened, alive with the hum of countless hearts. Every brushstroke he'd painted had become a spark in the dreaming. Through him, mortals were beginning to dream again, wide awake. I turned my gaze toward the heavens, where the black sun glimmered faintly. It no longer devoured the stars, it guarded them, patient, serene. Elias looked up too and whispered, "It's beautiful." And for the first time in 1,000 years, the dreaming answered with light. At the farthest edge of the dreaming lies the circle of sleep, a horizon that touches both the waking and the eternal. It is where night bows to dawn and dreams release their hold. I journeyed there, drawn by the pulse of new light rising through silence. The path shimmered beneath my feet, gold and shadow intertwined. The stars hummed softly, their voices returning after long stillness. When I reached the circle, the air felt alive, balanced and whole. There stood a figure waiting, radiant and calm, the voice of the dawn. Her eyes held every sunrise ever born. Her hands cradled the first light. "Morpheus," she said, her tone both kind and knowing. "You have walked through silence and learned its song." I bowed, though even gods grow humble before such grace. "The black sun fades," I said, "but its meaning still eludes me." She smiled, light spilling gently through her form. "It was never meant to end you. It was meant to remind you." I frowned, the truth hovering just beyond comprehension. Remind me of what? I asked softly. That even dreams must rest, she said. Even light must sleep to rise again. Her words were gentle, yet they struck deep, clear as morning after storm. The black sun, she continued, is balance made visible. Without shadow, no dawn could ever know its own beauty. I stood silent, the thought settling into the core of my being. I had fought to banish darkness, yet it had only ever asked to be understood. In its stillness was not death, but peace, a pause between breaths. She stepped closer, her voice like the hush before sunrise. You feared forgetting, she said, but forgetting makes room for wonder. Behind her, the sky began to bloom with color, hues I had never seen. The dreaming shone, neither pure light nor endless night, but both together. Every dream, every silence, every song, all parts of one vast rhythm. The voice of the dawn reached out, touching my chest lightly. Remember this, she whispered. Creation is a circle, not a line. Even gods must close their eyes sometimes to dream anew. I felt warmth spread through me, not fire, but quiet illumination. The black sun pulsed once more on the horizon, now soft and golden. It was no longer a void. It had become a mirror for the light's return. I knelt, letting the dream wind carry through me, gentle and whole. Then the silence was never our enemy, I said. No, she smiled. It was your teacher. As her light began to fade into morning, I heard her final whisper. When you wake again, let the world remember that rest is sacred. The circle of sleep glowed faintly as she vanished into dawn. I turned toward the dreaming, now filled with new sound and breath. Balance had returned, and in that stillness, the universe exhaled. And for the first time I understood, even silence dreams of light. At the farthest edge of the dreaming lies the circle of sleep, a horizon that touches both the waking and the eternal. It is where night bows to dawn, and dreams release their hold. I journeyed there, drawn by the pulse of new light rising through silence. The path shimmered beneath my feet, gold and shadow intertwined. The stars hummed softly, their voices returning after long stillness. When I reached the circle, the air felt alive, balanced and whole. There stood a figure waiting, radiant and calm, the voice of the dawn. Her eyes held every sunrise ever born. Her hands cradled the first light. Morpheus, she said, her tone both kind and knowing. You have walked through silence and learned its song. I bowed, though even gods grow humble before such grace. The black sun fades, I said, but its meaning still eludes me. She smiled, light spilling gently through her form. It was never meant to end you. It was meant to remind you. I frowned, the truth hovering just beyond comprehension. Remind me of what? I asked softly. That even dreams must rest, she said. Even light must sleep to rise again. Her words were gentle, yet they struck deep, clear as morning after storm. The black sun, she continued, is balance made visible. Without shadow, no dawn could ever know its own beauty. I stood silent, the thought settling into the core of my being. I had fought to banish darkness, yet it had only ever asked to be understood. In its stillness was not death, but peace, a pause between breaths. She stepped closer, her voice like the hush before sunrise. You feared forgetting, she said, but forgetting makes room for wonder. Behind her, the sky began to bloom with color, hues I had never seen. The dreaming shone, neither pure light nor endless night, but both together. Every dream, every silence, every song, all parts of one vast rhythm. The voice of the dawn reached out, touching my chest lightly. Remember this, she whispered. Creation is a circle, not a line. Even gods must close their eyes sometimes to dream anew. I felt warmth spread through me, not fire, but quiet illumination. The black sun pulsed once more on the horizon, now soft and golden. It was no longer a void. It had become a mirror for the light's return. I knelt, letting the dream wind carry through me, gentle and whole. Then the silence was never our enemy, I said. No, she smiled. It was your teacher. As her light began to fade into morning, I heard her final whisper. When you wake again, let the world remember that rest is sacred. The circle of sleep glowed faintly as she vanished into dawn. I turned toward the dreaming, now filled with new sound and breath. Balance had returned, and in that stillness, the universe exhaled. And for the first time, I understood. Even silence dreams of light. In the quiet after dawn, I wandered through the dreaming one last time. The air shimmered with the scent of memory, soft, clean, eternal. Every fragment of dream I had ever known seemed to hum with new life. The rivers of thought flowed golden now, carrying echoes of laughter. The once broken towers of silence had turned into pillars of light. The black sun hovered at the edge of the horizon, calm and radiant. It no longer devoured light, it balanced it, steady as a heartbeat. And beneath it, mortals slept with peace upon their minds once more. Elias's paintings now hung in galleries across cities and oceans. Each piece whispered of dreams not yet born, but waiting patiently. I felt the world remembering its capacity to imagine, to create, to rest. It was subtle, like wind through tall grass, like breath after sorrow. Through him, the world had touched the dreaming again without fear. And through me, the dreaming had learned to breathe with the world. I stood beneath the great expanse, listening to the rhythm between realms. Every sigh of wind, every flicker of light, spoke the same word: balance. I closed my eyes, sensing every mortal dream unfolding like petals. Children chasing stars in sleep, lovers meeting in endless meadows, artists painting with moonlight, wanderers walking the edge of time, all of them dreaming, not to escape, but to remember who they were. That was the gift of the black sun, not darkness, but reflection. I turned to the sky and whispered, "It is done." But a voice, faint and familiar, answered from within the silence. "Dreams are never done, Morpheus. They only change shape." I smiled, recognizing the voice of the dawn echoing through the air. "Yes," I murmured, "then let them change." I walked through the golden mist, where the veil between worlds shimmered. The dreaming no longer needed me to guide it. It had found its rhythm. And yet, I would remain, as all gods do, a watcher, a whisper, a guardian, not above creation, but within it, listening for the heartbeat of wonder. Elias would wake tomorrow with a new idea, gentle and bright. He would paint a small sun cradled in shadow, smiling softly. And somewhere, a child would look at it and begin to dream again. That is how the dreaming endures, not through fear, but through renewal. As I reached the edge of my realm, I looked back once, just once. The black sun gleamed quietly, haloed in silver and warmth. It was no longer a wound in the sky, but a promise kept. I raised my hand, tracing its light with one final thought. "May all who dream find peace in their silence," I whispered. The horizon trembled, and the dreaming answered with a sigh of light. Then, as dawn rose over both worlds, I faded into the glow, content. And in the mortal realm, the first birds began to sing of morning. The world awoke, dreaming still.